mind of a slumlord. My name is Edwin Torres. I'm one of the tenant leaders for the Hamilton Heights Tenant Association. We should have fun this morning.
Yeah, I'm David Hansel. I'm a leader for the Manhattanville Tenant Association.
I'm Bruno Bianchi. I'm an attorney. I represent tenants in housing court in 4 out of 5 boroughs. I refuse to pay $12 tolls to go to court.
Okay, so how many of you guys know the topic of this presentation? One of you guys. The back.
And you affected by
inside the mind of a Slumlord, like automobile and BCB
specifically? Indirectly, okay.
So it is inside the mind of a slumlord, right? So for a second, we gotta get out of the seat of being the tenant, and now we gotta sit where the landlords are sitting. What does that mean? How do they see us? Do they see us as humans? Or do they see us as just collateral zeros that they don't mean anything? So this is what I have, borrowed from a sociologist out of Brazil.
Tomado de la sociología de Brasil. Cuando tú dehumanizas a una persona, te asocia con ella, lo que significa inquilino. Por eso es de muchas condiciones que se ve de armar.
I can't hear you because I can hear him at the same time.
So, do you want to move to the other side?
No, you get closer.
He's got to do the translation.
No, you got
I don't need translation. I speak English.
No.
And I don't want nobody behind me talking.
So move to, can you please move to the other side?
Would it be possible for you to move a little bit forward?
Yeah, I'm fine.
No, a
Because
little
I
bit.
can't see.
You can't see?
Okay.
All right.
Two translators here.
Yeah.
And
So,
I
entonces,
got 2 ears, and one I can't hear.
Yeah. But he had to translate. And
Yeah,
you're very close to the
Yeah, but he talking louder than I.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll get close to you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. I
So
appreciate it.
entonces,
basically what happens
básicamente lo que
is,
pasa es
you have to
que
dehumanize a
tú
person.
tienes que
But in that same process, psychologically, you dehumanize yourself. Because you no longer see this person as a family, as a mother, as a daughter, as a working man, as a child. You have to make sure you don't see them no longer as for who they are. And then you can go in and do exactly what you do, which is neglect repairs.
Deja de hacer reparaciones.
And then, you just go about your day, and then you're fine with it. You can try to go to sleep. A lot of us here, when we see these things, we're like, how can you do this? How can you let somebody live in an apartment infested with mold, roaches, rats? You're not living in the same condition. But, remember, they no longer see themselves as, equal to you. They see themselves in a separate category. And that's how the whole thing starts. Because the minute that they start to see us as tenants, as humans who are paying them, that's going to affect their conscience. They're going to be like, how can I do this to them? How can I go into an elderly apartment, destroy the apartment while this person is bedbound? So, how then do we recuperate our humanization? Because at the end of the day, we are tenants. At the end of the day, we still have feelings. If I cut any of you guys, all of you guys are going to have the same blood. And all of you guys are going to hurt. I don't care if you're a landlord, or if you're a tenant, or if you are homeless. We all are the same breed. Okay? So, with that being said, now we can go very nicely into what the landlords say too. But keep that in mind that they're not seeing us as who we are. They just don't. And they will never do that unless we go ourselves and claim who we are.
To build on that, just to give you a little example, specifically BCB, whether it's Alma, whether it's any other slumlord that's out there, I can give you a little history of why I'm in the position I am as a tenant leader, where we came from, what kind of techniques they use specifically, and then I can get some general things, maybe share some specifics will help. about a year and a half ago or so, BCB purchased 6 buildings in the Upper West Side, Morningside Heights.
Who's BCB?
BCB is a management company now. And they purchased 6 different buildings, and immediately, you know, the tactics started. Until a few months later, we didn't realize that this is not the first time doing this. And their techniques are, you know, they come in, inappropriately notify the tenants that the building was sold, and randomly say, oh, the building, you know, just post notes saying, send your checks here now, you know, and immediately start harassing tenants, trying to get them out, tricking people into not realizing that they're in a rent-stabilized apartment, offering them things such as, we'll give you a 3 months rent and your deposit back guarantee, even though that deposit guarantee is, well, they're going to gut the apartment anyways, so it's not like they're going to blame you for some stains on the wall or something on the floor. So immediately they'll come in and they'll start construction, and the rent-stabilized people that realize that they're rent-stabilized, know that they're rent-stabilized, will be harassed to an extent, you know, with the construction noise, the workers in the building, dust, the environmental conditions that you've got to deal with, and you know, even to the point where you're almost getting physically harassed by some of the construction workers. And you know, immediately, you know, you'll see, you know, we have, for example, we had one gentleman in our building, a senior citizen. They were working above him and below him, completely gutting the apartment. His entire ceiling caved in. Literally caved in the living room. Thank God he was 5 feet away from him, because that would have been plaster all over his, you know, literally caved in. And they refused to fix it. And until we, you know, that's when, you know, we kind of started bonding together, finding the other buildings, and created a tenant association and, you know, started fighting back. And you know, to the point where, you know, one of the buildings, in particular, one of the 6 is my building. We have, you know, an HPD action, building-wide action going. 6 tenants, including one problem that we are suing them. That's the only thing that's gotten them to do any changes. And you know, the fact that, you know, somebody, you know, I'm an electrical engineer, that's not my forte, it's tenant organizing, doing this, that we had to educate ourselves, you know, for a year and a half, just to fight these slumlords. But the fact of the matter is, they have this in mind, you know, long before they know exactly the plan they're going to do. They know exactly the fees they're going to pay for the fines. They know exactly what they're going to do in the building. And us as tenants are backpedaling. You know, we're having to educate ourselves, and they've got all this information already. They've already got expert attorneys. They've already got the fees built in there. They're prepared to go in, and they know exactly what they're going against. And unfortunately, you know, we're, you know, as tenants, which is great to have these conferences, as tenants, you can find ways to combat these landlords. And for example, we found a building in Williamsburg that was the same management company, and we were able, you know, we went in our building for 7 months without gas, including the new tenants that came in, the limited apartments. And the building we found in Brooklyn was we were able to step in as an organized unit against BCB already and say these are their tactics. And I think they went 2 months without gas, so they didn't have to go for not as long as we had to go. But we're able to get them up to speed quicker. And unfortunately, that's the only way we can get things going is by you know, organizing, getting people involved in this, which I'm glad you're here. And you know, that's basically, you know, what our experience, my experience in BCB. So.
I've had a lot of experience with bad landlords.
Yo tengo mucha experiencia con
I also represent owners. I'm primarily a tenant's attorney. I do some work for certain landlord attorneys. I know who are. Landlord attorney, tenant's attorneys refer people to who don't normally hire landlord attorneys, such as when somebody who works for a legal aid or legal services organization owns a building and has to evict their tenant and wants to keep it in the hush-hush and not be known to the world that they're a landlord, I'm the guy that gets hired to discreetly handle a case like
caso,
You
no
know,
dan que necesitan un grupo de
you don't want the world to know you own a building and you're a landlord, and I'm the guy you
discretamente
hired to be your
le van a
landlord
ofrecer
attorney.
discretamente.
Because when the judge sees me coming in, it's like, well, wait, Bianchi's not a landlord attorney, why is Bianchi representing the landlord here?
So, los jueces lo conocen,
Somebody's got to
que
do it.
no es
So most tenant attorneys won't represent
que no
anyone.
es un abogado de
I represent someone.
So,
I've also known
los abogados
several
que
people
no
who worked
representan
for
los
Multiple Realty over the years and left there under bad circumstances. So I've heard a lot of them. They treat their employees as badly as they treat their
ellos
tenants.
tratan sus inquilinos tan
It shouldn't
mal
surprise, it shouldn't surprise you. It's a horrific operation.
es una operación
in
horrible.
order for us to understand
Para
who we are
nosotros saber
today,
dónde
we
estamos,
cannot negate the past.
no puede negar el
We're not
pasado.
here in the back. We just didn't come into the situation, one day to another. You know, let's talk about Alma. This company was founded in 1983. You know, that's the landlord that I'm dealing with. They're having a very nice time. We're getting along very nicely. I'm being sarcastic.
No estamos llevando muy bien, pero estoy siendo
But,
sarcástico.
you know,
Who represents all of that?
¿Quién representa
Kurt Carvalho.
Caraballo's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, with these.
The most sharply dressed attorney.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very nice guy. But, you know,
They have new attorneys now.
yeah.
No
But we want
Bella
to-
and,
very, very sharply dressed attorney.
He's
Think
tall,
about-
he's tall and imposing and
Think about when you are standing in front of these guys and you're going in there, you're not thinking that you're going to go to your prom. You're going to, you know, housing first. And a lot of us, you know, after that we have to go to work so we can sort of, you know, be up to the same scale. But there happens already the psychology. Look, we're different. You stay there, I stay
Lo
here.
de eso es para mostrar
Okay?
la psicología.
And there's some authority
Decimos
here
que
that I
ustedes
have.
son diferentes.
And in reality, yes, you do have some authority because you're a lawyer,
Autoridad,
but you're not the
abogado,
judge.
pero tú no eres
You can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, we're going to present our
al final
cases.
del día vamos presentando
Let's go back to 1983 when Alma started.
1900.
You know, a very nice, you know, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call him. He started this company. Now, this company, you know, when you start in your inception, you know, I'm talking about Alma, but this can apply to any other landlord. You got some good landlords, some landlords who they welcome tenant association. They say, look, I have a tenant association. These guys, they're gonna help me protect my building. You know, when I have a problem, I can call and say, hey David, you know, I'm having the guys who are coming in to get this job done. I have the super there. Please make sure that they get the work done correctly. Give me a call back if you have any issues.
Right.
These are,
We just check as an owner, we have to do like a building wide. It's much easier to deal with one person than 50 people.
Es
And
más
you've got
fácil lidiar
organized
con una
tenants.
persona que con
You can make,
50
if you want to do the right thing as an owner, it makes your job that much, it's like having a second managing agent in the building.
yes. So that right there, you know, with those two different contrasts between the landlord, who he wants to make sure, look, I get my job done, you do your part, you pay your rent, and we live happily ever after. You know, my margins, they're probably 25, 30%. Some of these landlords, they say, look, I don't want to make 30%, you know, profit, money. That's not what I want to make. I want to make 60%. You know, how can I do that? I cannot do repairs. I don't have sufficient services. And when you call, I just don't have enough people in my staff to answer your calls. We're very lucky that, well, I was very lucky that today's Saturday. Because what I was going to do, I was going to call their office now. You can just listen to the way they answer these phone calls. It's a way that right off the bat, they make you're not equal to them. I'm a realtor. Oh, good morning, how are you? How can I help you? You know, you can call any restaurant, any place. You go to McDonald's, you know, that's not a McDonald's, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. But you go to McDonald's, hey, good morning, how can I help you? You're like, what's your order? So these institutions, they started from a model that their place is to make sure that they run us down. They run you down. I'm sure many of you guys here feel like, so how can I start this? I have no power. David said, you know, fighting back. You know, fighting back is, that's what we need to do. I would call it gaining our power back. Because you guys in your building, let's say a building of like mine that has 18 units. 19 units in the other one. You take 100% and divide it by the 38 people. That's the power that each apartment here has. And when all of you guys unite, now it's 100 versus 100. Now we can talk. But before, if one of you guys call about a problem, nobody cares. They really don't care. You call them, they tell you they're gonna come in, you miss a day of work, they don't show up, who cares? Then you have to try to get your, to some of us, wait for the income tax money so you can fix the landlord's property. This is a property, that's what we're paying rent. It's not a co-op. It's not a condo. It's a rental property. But now, here's where the icing on the cake goes for the landlord. We can get you out. What's going to happen? Exactly, 20% automatic. Some of us, that been living there for a long time, our rent, we're paying, a couple of $100. But they would love to get us out. Why? Because then they get us 20%, but they're not going to go for 20%. When other people move in, they will say, hey, this apartment used to pay $1,000. It's a 4-bedroom. Now you're going to pay, $3,600, $4,200. A lot of tenants do not know how they can obtain this information. Make sure that if the rent that I'm paying legal, you don't know that the landlord doesn't give you a handbook and say, hey, here's your right as a tenant, here's my rights. I think that we need to have a bill of rights for tenants. It's the same way when you go to the hospital. Every hospital needs to have a display. Every landlord should have a display. But when you go to these guys and you sign this stuff, they don't give it to you. They don't give it to you. All the new tenants in our buildings, when we go to their buildings and we hand out, our has a very nice love book, and I call it, it's an orange book. It has all the tenant rights. When we give it to them, like they get, the landlord was supposed to give it this year. They don't do it. So then it goes to the enforcement, but that's a total different ballgame. The cost of business. Cost of business for BCD is to say, I'm going to take this building, David, you can complain as much as you want, DOP, you can come in, who cares? Why you do whatever you want? That's the model. There's different models. Alma's model is, I'm not going to fix your stuff. I'm going to have one super, 3 or 4 buildings. You're not going to get any services. And that's how I can make sure I fix the problem. This is the definition of a slumlord. They run this kind of, they run this kind of buildings this way. And they know they're going to get a fine here and there, but in reality, they don't care about your conditions. You're the one walking into your apartment that when you have a visitor coming in, you're like, please, just go to my apartment. And you see this, you see, garbage. All right, let's do something. Let's blame the victim. Let's blame the tenants. Let's say, oh, well, you're supposed to keep this place up. You're the one, but I'll tell you this, it's called maintenance. You have your own apartment, and in your apartment, if you do not clean, when you go on vacation, when you come back, you're going to find dust. That is called maintenance. People, they will drop things, they will not pick it up. That's why you have somebody that provide maintenance. Not somebody who's going to, be every single hour cleaning, but somebody who's going to provide maintenance. But they don't do this. So right there off the bat, they demoralize you. You're walking into a place where you don't feel like, hey, I deserve to live in a place that looks habitable, that looks humane. And you...
What I find in my building, some of it is really people, if maintenance doesn't occur, tenants will blame other tenants. And then saying, why isn't the super clean once a week?
And that's very nice because I agree with landlords. They have I think that they use something called the 33% rules. Make sure you get 33% Latinos, 3% black, 3% whites. Then within the Latinos, you make sure you get Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans, Peruvians, Ecuadorians, people that never gonna sit down and watch. Within the blacks, you get
Estados Unidos
Africans, you
africanos
get African Americans, you get Caribbean blacks. They're never gonna sit down and talk to each
y
other.
los del Caribe.
And then you get the
Ellos no se
whites.
sientan.
And then, you know, nobody's talking to each other. Meanwhile, we all share the same problem.
Pero tenemos
We all live in a building where, you know, maybe the buzzer doesn't work, maybe your floor is not being clean, maybe your door doesn't work properly.
arreglan
So,
la puerta, no trabaja.
the power there is very nicely constructed. You guys never talk to each other.
Asegurarse que no hablen uno con otro.
So you guys would never sit down on a table and say, look guys, I know we got our differences, but right now we have a big problem. We gotta focus on this. Then we focus on the rest. Like you said, blaming the victim. Blame your neighbor. Oh, they have a teenager, they have this, they have that. Maybe. It's true. And that's why the good landlords, they work with a tenant association.
Tal vez alguien tiene un
The
niño
good
o
landlords, they say, look,
muchacho
you know,
joven que haga
we're
muchas
having
cosas
an
de vista,
issue.
pero por eso que con el
Trying to
nombre
keep up
bueno
these things.
trabajo en relación de inquilino
And
para
we want to work with you
resolver
guys.
estos
How
problemas.
can we resolve this issue? And tenants,
Y le
people,
pregunta, ¿cómo
you know,
podemos
as much
resolver
as we
esto?
don't want to think that they, you know, that they understand each other, they do. You know, sometimes you gotta escalate things, but sometimes just talking to your neighbor as a unit, people understand, say, well, you know, we're trying to do an effort, but people have been so demoralized that they think it is the norm to live in a place that is run down.
Vivir en un lugar
Yeah, people don't realize, and to be honest with you, I didn't even realize myself until I was forced to
hasta que me
live.
pasó
And that
que
we have a lot of rights as tenants in the city.
hay mucho derecho como si
We have a lot of power. And I think that's part of the culture. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bruno, that's part of the culture, what landlords want to do. They want to make sure that you feel like they're in control and you have no power over anything. You know?
Right, that you just exist to pay money.
Yes. And we should be thankful that they give us the access to that apartment.
Thankful we return your phone call.
Yes, you know, or answer the phone even altogether.
There are very few management companies in this town that operate with like basic customer service skills that every other business in America.
Business model, yeah. Business model is not.
Their business model, I don't know where this business model comes from. And the problem is that
de dónde que
people
sabía.
can't, you know, New Yorkers are a tough and resilient bunch, except when it comes to dealing with their landlords, and it's always, you know,
Los neoyorquinos son una
people admit defeat, just like leave the situation where a minimal amount of organization and standing up
de
for
poner abajo
yourself
hasta donde
often results in
hasta cuando viene
a
a
different attitude from management.
Yeah, it absolutely does. By organizing, I can tell you the shift in our management company, they started answering the phone calls, they started
después
listening.
nos organizamos y
Once you get that
empezamos a
organization,
tomar el
they
teléfono.
realize that this guy knows something.
Asociación de inquilinos
They realize something. They've got something that they can come at us with. But, you know, like most people, I've known many people that have had
Pero hay muchas personas que han
issues with
tenido
their landlord and said they raised the rent 30%, even though it was in Prince Devo's apartment. They said, I can demand 7%, you're not renewing my lease. So I left. And they said, well, did you get rent
hay
registration?
mucho que se va.
Which is a very simple thing to do.
Y muchos
You know,
saben
it's a
que no
phone
metemos
call,
con
it's
la
an email,
relación del apartamento.
and 2-3 days later it appears in your house, and you find out
Si no
that
podemos
my rent's
hacerlo,
stabilized.
podemos mandar por
Those simple things like that people don't
por
realize they
teléfono,
have the
por
power to do.
correo.
And you all have that power, you know.
Y ahí tiene mucha información, no dice
Everybody here has
si
their
la
rent.
renta es renta o no.
Yeah. So
Todos tienen
it's a
su
very simple thing. You
pagar
call
de renta,
the
está
number
muy
in the
sencillo,
HCR,
el nombre de
and literally it
departamento
shows
de
up 2
vivienda.
days later in your
Y
house.
dos
You know, they won't
días
give you
después
the
la tienen
information
su
on the phone. They won't say anything about it. They just need your
el
address.
teléfono no
They
te
send it
dice
to your
nada,
address.
pero lo que
It's
quieren
a very simple phone call, and then you can look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm actually supposed to be paying this. Because what the landlords are doing is every year they have to
So
report.
what agency is that? I'm sorry.
DHCR,
And what
Department
does
of
that
Housing,
stand for?
Division of Housing and
división
Community
de
Renewal.
vivienda
They actually have an office in
renovación de
this
la
building
comunidad.
on the 5th
Y
floor.
eso está aquí en el quinto piso.
During the week, you want to stop by
Durante la
here
semana
on the
usted
5th
puede
floor, you can pick up a
ir
printout
al
of your
quinto
rent.
piso y buscar
If
una
you ever,
copia.
you show them ID,
Usted
they'll give
le
it to you
enseña
in
el
your
ID y
apartment.
se la dan.
Thank you.
Es bueno que traigan lista.
Sometimes they put what they register at the DHCR is not what.
Yes.
and that's
Muchas veces lo que
that's
registran en el
the
departamento de
actually
vivienda
for
no es lo que estamos pagando.
what's called rent overcharge. You can
Por eso que es
file
importante
DHCR, a rent overcharge. And they will actually look at what you're
So
paying,
usted puede
they'll look at what the rent registration is,
llenar una
and they'll go
aplicación,
back
una
4
reclamación
years,
sobre cargos de renta.
4 years. So if you've been
Ellos
being
miran
paid,
4 años
let's say
atrás.
you've been paid for 6
Por
years,
ejemplo, si está pagando
overcharge,
por
you lived there for
6
6 years.
años,
They'll only give you 4
Sobre
years, but they will go back and they'll say, this is their
Cuatro años.
rent, and here's their lease, and if you have copies of your lease, they will actually give you a refund based on that information. So they're not, you're not paying what they say is there. You should absolutely register or file a complaint with the
What
HCR.
have you been
Usted
in?
busca su registración y ve que
What
está
kind of work?
pasando, tiene que
And then
llenar una
have
aplicación con
you
el
filed
departamento
it
de
with the HCR though.
And, it's so complicated, yes.
You know what, I'm gonna be sitting at,
Yeah,
¿Sabe qué? Yo voy a estar
come
sentado
see
aquí,
me after the session,
ven
I'll be
a
sitting
mirarme
next
después de esta
door,
sesión.
Okay.
and I can look over whatever you have, okay?
So, yo puedo mirar los documentos que usted tenga.
My statement is similar to this, like my landlord, he
Mi
reports
problema es
the
bueno
rents
de
regularly
usted.
every year, but he reports them as close
Él
to
reporta
2,000, to try to get it
todos
off
los
the,
años.
There's
over that
different
mark.
reason why,
One
the,
second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so he charges a reasonable amount of rent for the units. He
Una
only
renta
takes
razonable.
working class people, no, no programs, and he keeps the rents affordable.
Y
But
mantiene la
he's
gente
reporting
asequible,
them
pero reporta
much higher, closer to
más
that
alta,
threshold. And the tenants, aren't aware, so soon,
cerca
I'm
de
sure a lot of the
el punto
apartments
que
are
pensa
gonna
que salir de
come
la
from under
renta
the
estabilizada.
rent stabilization. And why can't tenants report what their actual rent
Porque el
is?
inquilino
Because
puede
for me to
reportar
take
lo
off
que ellos
the
están
work,
pagando.
right, or all my neighbors to go and argue that they're reporting a wrong number when we're not being charged the wrong number, it's not feasible.
Okay. The most common reason
La
why
razón más común
that the
es
rent reported to
que
VHCR
la renta reportada
is more
por un
than the rent
departamento
being
de
charged to
vivienda
the tenant is often that over the years, the landlord has been able to take various rent increases to
los malos
raise
pueden
the legally
tener
charged
cierto
rent.
incremento,
But sometimes
a veces
what can be legally charged
lo que
is more
cobra
than what the
legalmente
market
es
rate
más
for
de
that
lo del mercado
apartment is.
puede
What the landlord will
sostener.
do is they will
Lo
give
que
the
la norma hace
tenant
es que
a
te da
lease
al
with something
inquilino
called a
lease
preferential rent.
llamado renta
It's not
preferencial.
It's
No es
not
preferencial,
No, it's not
no
a
preferencial.
preferential.
Okay, then somebody,
It's no,
Entonces
where the
alguien
box is on the lease that says, is this rent preferential? No, he wants working class people there, so he charges reasonable rent, but he's reporting, he's
le cobra a
tried
la
this to
persona
sell the
una
building
renta
a few
razonable.
times and they wouldn't buy it because, it had too many ETPA units in it. So I think he's trying to get it.
When you realize if you're in a rent stabilized apartment, even if you pass that threshold, where it's registered, you still a rent stabilized.
yeah, you're still renting.
Yeah, I know
Usted
myself.
todavía
When they get the vacancy, when somebody moves out, then they
Here-
can change that.
Here
Quick
goes,
question, does your landlord only own this one building?
No,
Una
he
pregunta,
owns
solamente
a
tiene
few,
solamente un
it's,
edificio, no, tiene unos
most of them
cuantos.
are in,
Mucho
a nice
edificio.
area of
En
Yonkers,
áreas
so
buenas, en
people come in,
Yonkers.
they're willing to pay the
So la gente
much,
viene y ellos pueden
higher
pagar
rent. He
una
even
renta
lives out
más
of the country, I think he's in trouble with the DHR for something
fuera
else,
del país. Yo
so
creo que
he's
tiene
not, hasn't been back,
problemas.
but,
And who manages the building for
¿Quién lo
this?
maneja?
he always has a tenant to it.
Siempre.
I was about to say,
Tiene un inquilino
the second you
cerca.
started describing this to me, my
El
first
segundo
thoughts in my
como
mind were, sounds like an amateur landlord.
Lo-
You have an
He's been a
amateur,
como
landlord
alguien
for
que
a
no
long
sabe qué
time.
doesn't
hacer.
matter, he's an amateur, he's not a pro. What he's doing makes no economic sense
No
for
está
himself,
haciendo
because it
sentido
only
económico.
creates problems for himself.
Porque eso crea problemas para él.
And it creates a mess for you as a tenant, and creates a mess for himself as a
Eso está
landlord.
creando un problema
The
para
guy's
todos.
an
El
amateur.
inquilino y
If
él.
you want,
Él es un
like I said,
amateur.
I'll come over later, I'll
Si
take a
quiere,
look at
viene
your
Alright,
donde mí y yo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as a tenant association, you can bury that guy, you know, that
No
he's
es un
setting himself
inquilino,
up.
tú puedes enterrar ese.
Totally, he has no idea what he's doing.
Él no tiene idea
you
de lo que
guys
está
need to
haciendo.
think, remember how I started?
Se acuerda cómo empezó que
Humanization? You guys
de
are
humanizar
humans.
la persona
You guys are thinking that the
Están
landlord is
pensando que el
coming in
landlord
with good faith.
y está viniendo con
The
buenos
number that
propósitos.
he's giving you,
Y
they're
lo que le está
correct.
dando el número es
Some of us
correcto.
were waking up like, wait, hold on.
Nosotros despertamos.
That's not
No,
true.
espérate,
This
eso no
is
es
this is
verdad.
the thing the way it should be.
Es así que está
Hence
sucediendo.
the reason why organization
La
of this
razón
power.
por qué muchas
Because now you
organizaciones poder,
solidify everybody, all of us in this room,
todo
we
un
all come
cuarto,
in, you might have 3, 4 liters, 5,
tenemos 3 o 4
but
libras,
now,
5, pero
you
ahora,
said you gotta go to work.
si tú
How
tienes
can
que
I make sure I get a
¿cómo
tenant
podemos
out?
asegurar?
Maybe you pay your rent, I cannot take you to that route. But if you lose your job, then you're not gonna be able to pay your rent.
Si tú pierdes tu trabajo,
And then you're in trouble. And then, so then you gotta make the decision, do I fight and go out? Because some of us who are in court, you guys know that
y que me
you
saque,
gotta take
solo
days
estamos
to go there.
cortos,
You know, it's an entire day, it's not a half a session. I've been there sometimes from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. And if I were at work, I would have made a heck of a lot of more money. But, you know, at some point we gotta stand on principle. At some point when you bury, you don't bring no money with you. I'll tell you a little nice story. I like stories. There was a very rich guy. He comes in, you know, has a lot of money. Tells his son, look, when I die, I want you to give me all my money. So the son always obeys his father. Like, Papa, yes, you know, make sure I'll do that, you know, that's what you want. And the guy dies. Like, well, okay, now Papa wants all his money. So he wrote a check and he threw it in his casket. He said, well, you know, go and cash it. While you're cashing, I'm going to be spending some of this money. The moral here, you know, we need to make sure we stand for something. And maybe one of us cannot take this fight. But as a tenant association, maybe I don't go one day, maybe David can go the other day, maybe she can go the other day, maybe, you know, he can go another day. And then now we have a very nice equal battle. Because not only do we, you know, share the burden that we've been sharing all along, but also what we do is that the pressure gets distributed in a different way. Because now you're going to start seeing results. Now you're going to start seeing that the landlord is going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? The landlords, they don't like when you become aware. When you awaken and you see that the way they see you is not the same the way you see them. Because, you know, calling them a slumlord, name shaming, hey, for them it's a cocktail party. Hey, I'm giving the worst slumlord. Okay, yeah, it's good time. Okay, everybody. You know, this is my money and profit. Okay? But for you guys who are in the eye of the storm, it's a very different story. So it's very important for you guys to organize. Talk to your neighbor. I know you might have a difficult neighbor that you think that, hey, I cannot deal with this person. But, you know, put that aside. Put that aside and say, look, Ms. Robinson, I know you and I, we've been having some issues, you know, but we got a problem right now that we have to fix. How can we get to this? And people will listen. Because I'll tell you now, I'll go to Alma. So what I did, what happened to me, you know. In my building, I live on the second floor. So before we had a flower shop, very nicely. We had the smell of the roses in the morning. It was beautiful. Well, the flower shop was priced out like many of the small businesses. The reason why we had Harlem, 20 to 15 years from now, we got to see if what we're going to have is Starbucks and Citibank and Chase. Then who knows what's going to happen. But we had a restaurant that opened down my building. This restaurant was playing, I'm a nurse. So I used to work at that time in Atlantic still. At the same time I was working, I'm doing my master's. So I work 7 days a week. I try to sleep 5 hours. Okay, well, the music was so loud that my table, which are heavy, were vibrating. You know, talk to the guy, okay, call the landlord. Landlord, there's nothing I can do, this guy's paying. I know nothing about Palante, I know nothing. I'm like, seriously, this absolutely cannot be true. So as a researcher, I go in and I'm like, look, a certain decibel does damage to your body. Look, I'm living it. So I picked that bottle. I finished with the guy. At the city, you gotta find. The day before Father's Day, they showed up. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, you had DEP there measuring the noise level. They find a guy, I think it was about $10,000. Now, I was like, okay, if I have problems here, my apartment, I was ready to put $20,000, $30,000 to fix myself. But then I'm like, if I have problems here, all my neighbors that have problems, all of them. And I started knocking on people's doors. Hey, I have a problem. Besides the common areas that we already know is happening. Boy, in the first meeting, everybody came out. Everybody just started complaining. They were like, okay, so now what we got to do is create a tenant association. By that time, I already contacted Palante through Facebook. It's like, look, I got some issues. And now we're fixing them. And I didn't do this so the landlord can fix my apartment. Because that was not the intent. To the point that now, when the landlord is going to fix everybody's apartment, and mine's going to be the last. Because I told him, look, I'm not doing this so you can fix my apartment. This is the principle. People need to have principle. And that's what we all need to have. We all need to reclaim that. If you don't, nobody's going to give it to you. Because you can come in and we can complain as much as we want, but at the end of the day, when we go back, the landlord is going to say, hey, who cares? Now, when you take action, you unite, that's different.
Yeah, I can say, you know, from my personal experience, you know, I did, I lived there for 10 years. You know, my neighbor downstairs, neighbor downstairs, him and I almost got into it a couple times, you know. But you know, now I have keys to Bob's apartment, I have keys to my other neighbor's apartment. It creates a whole different environment. Family, you know, and you know, you receive packages, I'm out of town, can you go in my apartment and water my plants, you know, do this. You know, it really, by organizing a tenant association, not only gain that power against the landlord, you have the opportunity to fight back with a stronger voice, but you also create friends and people that you will, you know, in that community. And, you know, in the city of New York, you know, you can live next to somebody for 10 years and not know them, you know, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. We're too busy, we're going through our lives, we don't want to deal with it. You know, we see them in the hallway, but you don't even say anything, you know. You know, it's not like the suburban lifestyle where you can know the neighbor, you know, or that so-and-so I play, you know, so my kid plays, you know, soccer with them or this. But in New York, we all are busy. But by forming the tenant association, you know, you really not only gain the advantage of having that strength and united front against your landlord, you also gain a lot of friends and a lot of people as a community. And strengthens really, you know, position obviously with the landlord, but you know, to have that, you know, feeling where you can feel comfortable, I can go and knock on my neighbor's door and borrow a couple of sugars, so to speak. And then, you know, the suburban way, you know, when you need something, your neighbor's there for you. So by organizing that really helps you with that.
And those days are over in which you didn't know your neighbor. Those days, you gotta throw them out the window. Those days in which you live in New York City for 20 years, and Rosa lived next door, and next thing you know, she's moving down to Florida. Like, what? You moving out? Oh, I've been living here for 30 years. Those days are over. Because if you do not get to unite, trust me, the landlords are united. They are doing it very nicely. They're all, you know, creating coalitions. They get in their nice lawyers, see Kurt, you know, with his nice shoes coming around. I try to go to Mason before I see him so I can look nice. So
You can't win with him.
yeah, you know.
The man wears his federal court suits to housing board.
Yeah, so these are the things, those days are over. Those days are over in which you just see the other person and you get to be like, okay, I have nothing to do with them. Because remember, you guys live right next to each other. Now, you know, by you knowing your community, your building first. A lot of us, we have more friends in another building than our own building. You know? And if something happens, the people that can answer the call faster than 911, it could be a neighbor. So besides the landlord, for us to make sure that, because we need to unite. Unite in our buildings, unite in our community. The pressure is on. The pressure's been on. The pressure's been on for the rent stabilized, for those who are paying this high rent. Those who are market rate, they are greater much risk for everything. It's like they're being slapped around left and right. Okay, you know. So, but when you have a tenant association, the landlord's like, oh, hold on. I need to take it easy. Because they call it these people. They don't call you, you know, tenants, these people. So we all know what these people mean. It's you guys trying to reclaim what you guys are paying for. How many of you guys go to a restaurant, you order a whole chicken for your family, they bring you the feathers and you're like, honey, that's all they got. You know, we gotta eat the feathers. That's fine. None of you guys are, you're gonna call the manager. You're gonna be like, look, I pay for a whole chicken. You know, you're keeping the chicken on mine. Now, we can't get out of our apartment. If we get out, it's gonna get tougher. Now, you can't demand these things. Like Bruno Bianchi was saying, you know, basic services do not provide. This is the only industry that you can see somebody get beaten, and the landlords, they still get paid. And I don't mean beaten physically, even though it has happened to some of the tenants, some of our tenant leaders that have been, you know, nice in confrontation. We have a lot of fun with them. You know, but they do it in a reverse way. They make sure that, hey, if you have a water leak, if you're not getting heat during the winter. And those cold days, you're as cold as it can be. Or you're going to pay a high electricity bill. We have some tenants that have to pay $1,000 in electricity bill because they got to heat their apartment. You got your grandmother, you have your kids, you know, you got no option. You get into these payment plans.
Question, I know that intimidation is a huge matter. The landlord comes in, the top manager, the super, and tenants, when they do unite, can bring another tenant or a tenant buddy, somebody that goes with them. But I'm curious from Mr. Bianchi, if you could tell us who appoints the housing court judges?
Yeah.
You can have everything on your side, the documentation, and the judge says, well, I'm not gonna look at that. So who appoints the housing court judges, especially the rotation matters? I've seen lately that the judges are not rotating in each branch.
Okay, let's save that for the end. Let's do more topics. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
We have a lot of time today, so we'll save
Because
that
you
for
can
the end.
gather all of that, but once you
Because
get.
then I'll give you my speech about the ills of the housing court justice.
Now,
And I have a lot of good friends of mine. Actually, I've got 3 attorneys who I used to be supervisor. 3 people I trained as attorneys are housing court judges.
Tengo
but
tres
remember,
personas que eran
going to that,
abogados que yo
I
entrené,
cannot go
que son
into specifics,
jueces.
I'm not in housing, I'm in healthcare. But
Yo entrené
we have power as a
y
community.
yo entrené.
When all hell breaks loose, and you guys then unite, now you belong to an organization, now trust me, the pressure is on. The pressure is on from where, you know, we cannot pressure the but we can pressure the system.
So no podemos
You know, we can pressure the system. That's how we were
tener
created.
presiones.
That's how the founding, that's how America was created. People get together, you know, you're like, look, I'm not gonna take this,
Dicen, yo
and
no voy a
then you
tomar
fight
esto.
for your rights.
Uno se por su derecho.
And if we do that, you know, okay, your case, particular case might not work. But I know our case here, one of our tenant leaders, that he has some issue, and from Palante, they changed the laws at the state level
La misma gente
for the till bill. I think the issue was that if you live on a till, something
The
like that.
till tenant didn't have succession rights.
The till tenant didn't have succession
Their
rights.
sons.
So you live there, and you know, you had your daughter, your son, and then you died, forget it, they gotta get out.
Y tenía su hijo.
Now, the impact that came from that one tenant, that one building, that one organization, now has an impact for all the tail buildings in the state.
Para todos los edificios que
So do not think you don't have power, because at the end of the day,
no
we
piensa
vote.
que ustedes no tienen poder, porque
And if
al final
you're in, and you want to go and hang out with the landlord, have a cocktail, you're going to be out. I'll tell you this, a lot of these politicians, that's all they have.
los políticos
They have nothing else. If they get out of those positions, it'll be very hard for them to make a 6-figure salary again.
difícil para ellos ser un sueldo de
Okay?
sin número.
So trust me, they want to hold on to those positions.
Créame, ellos quieren
And you're the one who put them there.
y ustedes, bueno, que la
You
pusieron
need to hold people accountable.
tienen que
Either you're with us or you're not. Don't come to me, you're going to come here and then you're going to go and sleep with the landlord. That's not the way it works.
so, no de que hable conmigo y después vaya y
And they're, you know, the landlords are organized. They had
Indeed.
a conference in Brooklyn, right, about a month ago, where they had a 3-day or 2-day seminar, similar to what we're doing, that's specifically talking about how to harass tenants.
How do we make
How to
it?
evict tenants. And they're completely organized, and they are in, not even just a problem, it's a housing crisis going on right now. All of us have problems. You know, the city of New York is becoming unaffordable for the typical New Yorker. And it's a crisis, and those same people that are doing the conference have money in the backs of all the politicians' pockets that are making those laws. You know, so by organizing, you know, you're not only, again, gaining the power to fight against the landlord, but you're also, you know, more empowered to, you know, elect officials that, you know, that are gonna fight for your rights, you know?
And these elected officials, trust me, when you go by yourself, yeah, they pay attention to this. You probably won't even meet them to begin with. You probably don't even meet them. Now it's a tenant association, oh, now they're interested. Oh, how many people are in your building? Oh, can I go and talk to you guys? You know, why? Because they want to stay in the position. I don't care how much money any politicians get. I know the environment we're in today, politics is all about the money in the bank, but
In the views
in
of power.
in this election, that was proven, one point that it's not true. Because if that was the case, Bush, you know, the brother of Bush, Jeb Bush, he would have won the nomination for the Republican. That's another issue we can talk about. But let's just focus that he spent $100 million. And another guy only spent like 50 million. So that is not true. The people have the power. They can spend all the money they want on TV ads, but we here on the ground floor, we see what's going on.
And you know, like, for example, just, you know, in my experience, you know, we called, we complained, the landlord didn't say anything, didn't do anything. As soon as we organized the tenant association, our first step, you know, as you know, the tenant association was to write a letter. And we wrote a letter to our elected officials. It went to the management company, it was copied from Cuomo, to Blasio, City Council, Attorney General. And actually, we got responses. We got from the you know, Cuomo's, you know, had put it over the TPU. To the production unit, and they sent us the documents. You know, a council member actually put us in touch with Palente. That's how we, you know, originally got involved with them. And we got responses from a lot of them. A lot we didn't, but you know, once you write a letter, you're organized. That politicians actually do listen, because now you're not just, you know, Torres, you know, Edwin Torres. You're it's an association, you know, which means that you're united. So the politicians do actually listen when you go through those steps. It's you know, a lot of work, but it's worth it.
And remember, bodies, they scare people. Because, you know, you got one, like, I remember we went to court the first day. My tenant association, you know, tenants, not mine, because I'm owning it. You know, we show up, we had about 25 people. Showed up the first day in court. To the point that our lawyer had to say, look, hold everybody here, we're going to go create some space. So the whole bench was filled with our tenants, and half with another bench. Now, the judge, you know, of course, you got to be impartial. You see that there's a situation going on. There is a problem. When every one of these individuals, out of their lives, had to come to court, there is a problem. And I don't care what you say. If that judge wants to say, well, this is not a problem, hey, that's fine. Us 25 will go and, you know, and complain about you. Look, this is a democracy. We're still not in a, you know, in a dictatorship. We can still complain about anybody. You can complain about Obama if you want. They do it all the time. So, you know, you can complain. Don't think that you don't have the right to complain. Maybe it's not going to go anywhere, but if it accumulates, it does. You know, then somebody's going to say, look, Edwin, something is going on here. Your patient's not complaining about you. There's a problem here. Well, I'm the best. No, you're not. Like, you're not, you know, do not think for 1 minute that nobody can take your position. Because they can, and they can probably do a better job. So for these landlords, and you guys, do not think that you cannot replace your landlord. You're not going to move from your house, from your apartment. Maybe you have plans for you to move out. But many of you have seen landlords come and go, and you stay in the same place. It's time for you guys to say, look, I'm going to stay here. Whoever comes here, you get on the line, and now you're going to follow the rules just like everybody else. And if you don't, we'll crack the whip.
If they will put you in court, and then you have to hold them accountable. Because I've been ever since my last 5 years as a we part of that NYC Council Watch. But the more you have to put pressure, and you can get serious, put pressure on the community boards. There's like land use and then housing committee.
Yeah. That's another powerful tool, you know. The community board. I'm a member of my community board, and from all this, all from the music that I first talked to the owner of the restaurant, called the landlord, they just didn't pay no attention to me. They thought it was over. I really believe the strategy was blast the music as high as you want, because I'm only paying a few $100. Okay, I'm not going to say how much it is, because you're going to pay. You know, that's what you fight for. But, you know, that was the situation. Blast the music as high as you want, get these guys out, and then get somebody in. Because in reality, in that year that it took me to get out, I wasn't in my house 70% of the time. Sleep. I couldn't sleep in my house 70% of the time. I was only allowed to be in my house during the day. After 8 o'clock at night, 9, forget it. It was over. You go to the Yelp reviews, the own customer of the place, they're complaining. So now, from all that, this is where we are now. All of you guys are having issues. I don't care what it is. If your apartment is completely fixed, maybe you're paying too much rent. And if you're not paying too much rent, maybe your building needs to get maintenance. And if you don't need to get maintenance, just get united. You might need somebody that one day. Who cares? You might want to get together and say, hey, landlord, you know, you're a great landlord, your building is fixed. You know, it's an association, we got united. We collected $200. Can you imagine? So we can put some nice paint. You can go around and buy a paint for $5. And then you put your paint in the hallways. Because this is where you live, this is home. You spend 1/3 of your life working, 1/3 sleeping, the other third more likely walking and trying to get to the house. Forget that. None of you guys, trust me, you're spending the 1/3 of your life outside. Maybe 20% of your life you're spending it outside doing other things. But the majority of the time you're spending it in your house, in a home. So why not make that place a welcoming place where you feel human again? When you don't let a slumlord get into your mind and tell you, look, you don't deserve this. If you want to live like those people downtown, you're not paying this kind of rent. That's not true. Absolutely not true. How much does it take to paint an apartment? Nothing. But they won't do it. To make sure that, you know, you get so sick of it that you're like, look, I'm out of here. But we're not going nowhere. We're going to stay here. We're going to fight this battle. Those who have Alma issues, who have BCB issues,
And of course, now you can be hungry.
Palante, they have a very nice recipe for these guys. It's like, you know, when you get sick, they give you some medicine. We got a nice medicine for these guys. And we're taking care of them.
So I'm not sure what you want to accomplish with here. You're describing the situation in terms of organizing, there are a lot of buildings where there's a crisis, people work together. If there's no crisis, people hold back. Various reasons to say, why should I call 311? HP doesn't drop for a week and a half. At least it's dropped up. There's no sign of evidence to get a violation. So, in my building, without going into all the details, we had a crisis with no gas in the building. People came together. A lot of folks on my part to do it. We got a rent reduction. LC Vasquez and Palante Carl saved the day. We got the gas turned on 3 months sooner. Nobody else did everything's content. We're working with the landlord's watch list. We got into the AED program. The landlord started moving them because it cost the money for the room. So we cleared all that, and then I heard from some of the staff people that they had done it the wrong way. So now they're coming out to fix stuff as it is. There's no common denominator. There's no crisis. If we get rid of MCI, people will come together and shoot it out. Meanwhile, people are moving in and moving out. And he's putting in more people. The makeup of the new people is a language barrier. It's English-speaking people, and it's Spanish, or bilingual. So there's not, communication not so easy to do that. And there's an age difference as well. So there's various things that stop us from even beginning to do something. And then there's the city doesn't respond. DOE, the landlord has people coming in, some people coming in, licensed to do repairs, plumbing, whatnot, he's renovating apartments. DOE won't come out for 2 weeks if they can. So all that goes on they will not this until we have the crisis. So I don't know, I'm sort of dropping something, right? From my viewpoint, it's a little more complicated if you don't have a crisis facing you.
That's true. I mean, you know, until you have that, you really want to spend the time, you know. We had people that, you know, in our tenant association, they don't get involved. They don't care. You know, they have a lot of power. But, you know, it's frustrating and dissatisfying it is to have the HPD not come on, the DOB come on. You know, I'll tell you, when you do get, you know, the crisis and we do have something where we do get people organized, yes, they have a long time, you know, obviously Glenda and LC has helped us out a lot, you know, getting that direct channel, back door. But, you know, even before then, you know, we did a 3-1 campaign. And what happens is everybody's calling, the inspectors come in and you know, one day they'll turn on the heat in the hottest day of the summer, you know, but then they come on the next day and the heat's not on. But if you call every day and you have somebody say call once a day, spend 5 minutes on the phone, do it online. The inspectors are coming out, so they're gonna see that, because they're gonna be already in your building for something else. And you can be like, oh, by the way, look at this, here they are, the heat is on. They're like, oh, that's ridiculous, you know, so you get people coming to your building on a regular basis, you start to notice, with HPD, DOB, they really do, it's corrupt or not corrupt, it's, you know, difficult organization, HPD and DOB are. You know, once that flight keeps going up for that building and they're there 2-3 times a week, they're gonna start looking at that building closer. You know, so even if it's, you know, not the whole building, you know, you can call, you can 1 or 2 people in the building, you know, that language barrier, and they're just gonna notice. You notice when the inspectors in your building, they come in, they have the badges, they have the uniform on, you know, the yellow card downstairs, but you know, like, you'll know that the inspector's in your building, and your landlord takes note of that. You know, the more and more that you get that guy in the building, you can call him every day yourself. And by doing that, every time you do it, they have to, what they do is, as soon as you make that phone call, and I don't agree with the system, they immediately inform your landlord, like within an hour. You know, because I've reported something and I had the landlord call me an hour later. You know, like when they had a stop work order. They said they had a stop work order. How are they working on that? So literally a half hour later, the super called me and said, why did you call me? You know, so they get that phone call immediately. So, you know, when you call 301, that call does go to your landlord. So by calling every day, even if it's 1 or 2 of your tenants in the building, getting that inspector out there, getting those people out there, gets the attention of HPD, DOB, DEP, they all, you know, start to notice, we're here every week. You know, why are we here every week? You know, and they start to, you know, the inspectors, they get irritated. You know, they're like wanting to start writing them up because they're not doing anything about it, you know? So, you know, it's, you know, when you say, where you get, you know, when you have people coming in and coming out, you can still better your building by, you know, yourself doing your campaign, you know, and getting 1 or 2 of your neighbors in there. Because eventually it's going to pan out.
Going back to the point where you said license. Unfortunately, that is the mentality that a lot of us systems. We do not prevent problems. We don't get united to prevent issues. We get united when we have a crisis. And you can see that in the organizational patterns all throughout different, you know, tenant associations, anything. That's how it works. But when it comes to tenants, you know, it becomes tenants, you know, for example, in my building we have 38 units, and out of those 30 we have 20 people who are in the association. So that's the majority. And you're not trying, it's impossible for us to try to satisfy a building that has 40 or 50 apartments, or 20 or 10 or 5 to satisfy everybody. But as long as you guys try to keep the power, those people are going to come. At some point they will come back to you and say, look, I want to be part of this. Because they probably need you. We won't turn them down. We're not going to be like the landlord. Because at the end of the day, they're our neighbors. But it has to start somewhere. It has to start. It might take that you might have to put flyer twice. It might take that you might have to talk to, you know, Ms. Robinson.
Que tengan que hablar con la señora Robin.
Conversation we've had. But it has to happen. Because if we just give defeat, you know, from the point of view that we've been to many apartments that the tenants, they say, look, nobody's going to unite you. As soon as we knock on the door, everybody's coming out. Everybody's coming out and saying, look, because, oh yeah, this is happening. So, it is true. That's a problem.
And you know, people don't realize it. You know, for example, we had a couple months ago, an individual that was a lockout, where they locked out an individual. His mother and father had moved to a senior citizen place, and they just changed the lockout. Started renovating his house. So we go over to the building, and sure enough, they already started renovating his apartment, even though he lived there, and he had paid the rent. And then what we did is we started knocking on the doors on our way down. Next thing you know, we've got 30 people in the lobby.
En su puerta, cuando se dieron cuenta tenemos 30 personas en el lobby, 30 gente de empezaron
I don't know how far it's gone, but you know what I mean? But they get united.
Pero
You
ellos
know,
se
they don't
unen,
realize that they're living next
se
door
dan
to each
cuenta
other,
que
and
viven
everybody has
personas
a problem. Everybody has an issue, you know?
todos tienen un
The
problema.
landlord was calling Palante the next day.
El landlord estaba llamando para adelante.
Say, what can
He
we do?
was calling Palante saying, how can I make this,
Estaba llamando
what
para
can I
adelante. Sí,
do?
¿qué yo puedo hacer?
Because he probably did his research.
Esta señora de ese edificio.
Sí, ella
Sí.
was saying, yeah. We are one of the tenants here from the building. So, the landlord in that building now, he's trying, which is great, that's what we want. Hey, we don't want to fight, it's all love. It's all accountability, that's what it comes down to. You know, you get your work done, I'll pay my rent. You know, right now, you know, there's different strategies to go about this. You know, some landlords, they don't want to, they just want to get the work done, they realize that, and people say they're not amateur, they say, look, get stuff done, it's fine. You know,
Let's get to the point. You going all into all of this stuff here. I want to know what's the solution.
The solution, you guys gotta unite.
Okay.
In your building, you
How?
guys have to unite. How are we gonna unite? We need to make sure that if you want to unite your building, like I did, for Palante, right? I was myself. I didn't know how to get this organized. How do you start this? How do you do it? You know, I reached out to Palante, went in there, met with Wasta, Elsie, you know, distribute flyers for the tenants, talk to my tenants, knock on people's door. Some people didn't open the door, some people just slammed the door in my face. You know? But that day that we had the meeting, the majority of the people were there. And now, after everybody was there, and everybody's talking about the problems, then everybody gets united. Then what do you do after you unite? After you have a board, after you have a tenant association, what do you do after that? Then you hold them accountable. How do you hold them accountable? With different campaigns. Call 311.
Call 311, attend community board, housing, and land use committees.
So
this is important and it's serious.
I didn't hear you. What
If
you
you, the more you call 311, the better you attend your community board, whether it's housing or land use committee meeting. Because this is serious.
yeah.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Every month until
We
I
can
think
talk
the
about
next
this
committee
every
meeting we have
all
like
day
September.
long.
You know what I
Let's
mean?
come to some solutions now.
The solution, you have to unite. That's basically the point. The point is that inside of the mind of the slumlord, the slumlord doesn't look at you the same way, and you got to take action. How do you take action? You unite. How do you unite? You knock on your neighbor's door.
That's not gonna happen.
Even if you
Unite
unite, excuse me, even,
Let's be real. So
Even
what
if-
else can we do?
It does happen.
Eso no
Why
va a
would
pasar.
I-
I
would
will
wait a
happen.
minute, let me say something.
Hold
Even
on.
if you reunite,
I would like
Que
to,
usted se una.
unite with one tenant.
Yeah,
This
I'm
is
not
the
saying
only one that I'm
everybody,
united in
though.
my
You know,
building,
it's very
because everybody
hard.
else
It's
is.
not as easy
So I
as
can-
pie.
No, it's
To
not.
everybody, because we're dealing with different parts of the rainbow
You only
now.
need one,
Well, how-
you only
how-
need one.
And everybody has all different
Todo el mundo
problems.
tiene
Everybody's
problemas
problem
diferentes.
is not the same.
yeah,
only need
what-
one.
So you're saying that it's very, to
No, you don't. You need more than one.
to
No,
get this,
Pero
to
necesita
get
más de
I only
this
got one.
because your point,
Tu punto es,
maybe a lot of people have
It
the same
depends, but
question.
that one is,
You know, but to your point, you're saying
Y
that
tu punto tú
everybody
dices
has
que todo el
different
mundo tiene
issues, and because they
diferentes
have the different issues, they
yeah,
know
because
together.
we're dealing with the,
sí, porque tú
the
estás
type of
lidiando
society we
con
deal
tipo
in.
de sociedad.
Because of
It
the
is
point
what
that
it is.
the point that I pointed out earlier, the point that I said of the 33%, the point that I said about the
Por el
humanizing,
punto de
is
que
that
el
what you're referring
30%
to?
disminuye, eso es lo que te estás refiriendo.
You remember that
¿De
I
qué tú
said
estás
you get
hablando?
33% Latino, 33%
No, I
black?
didn't hear that.
You didn't
No,
hear
yo no
that?
es eso.
No, I didn't. Repeat.
Okay.
Repítelo.
All right. So basically, the whole point is to
Básicamente
keep you
el
guys
punto es-
divided the same way you're talking about. So you are by having that mentality and thinking that no, we can't unite. The landlord.
No, I don't have that mentality.
No, well, you probably don't.
I don't.
Your neighbors, they probably do.
Really?
So you're saying that they would not unite, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Get to the point.
The point is that we have to make sure we knock on people's door and get that out of your head that they're not going to come out. Indeed they will. Trust me, they will. Maybe not everybody, but some of the people, they will come out. That is a lie. That is an absolute lie that people will not come out. Because in that building that we showed up that night, we just knocked on people's door and everybody was down. Maybe not 100%, but 90% of them were down. And a lot of them, they're here today.
Muchos de ellos están aquí.
And for you guys who are dealing with these landlords, do not think, absolutely not true.
They want you to think.
They want you to
They
think.
want you to think that you cannot organize and not unite. And
Of course, divide and
that's their
conquer,
plan.
yes.
They're
That's the
sipping
best way
their
to do it.
cocktails and saying, these guys, we're gonna, and, you know, take the power away from them by saying you're not united.
It's very easy for the landlords.
Fácil
They,
para el landlord.
like you said, they do it strategically.
Lo
They
hacen
put
estratégicamente.
Mexicans, they put Spanish, they put,
Americanos,
and they put, like in my building, there's
Como en la pieza,
mostly
pues,
Mexican.
la mayoría son mexicanos.
So we have a language barrier.
Tenemos una
Okay,
barrera en el
there's about
lenguaje.
three families that
Cuatro,
are
tres
black,
familias
okay?
que son
And then there's about
razas negras.
5 or 6 or 8
Cinco,
white
seis.
people in there.
Son
So
blancos.
this woman is my neighbor. She lives on the second floor. She lives in 2P. I live in 2B.
So yo vivo en el
Didn't
2B.
even know these people.
No conocía a esta persona.
She doesn't speak good English, but she speaks
No habla el
English, okay?
idioma
I
bien,
can't speak
pero
Spanish.
yo no
So
puedo hablar
most of
español.
the tenants in the building, we can't communicate. So she goes around. Now, most of them are allowing the landlord to I'm gonna be stupid enough to keep letting you in there to mess up my apartment.
That's right.
And because I got the key to her apartment to let whoever in she wants me to, he can't come in there either. I'm playing big boss. And mind
That's
you,
right.
there's a lot of apartments in there.
Hay muchos apartamentos.
Me, her, and another
Ahí.
neighbor, the only 3 that's willing to still work at it. And as long, I told her like this, as long as you're still ready to work at it, I got your back. I'm gonna make sure I got your back because you know what? He's not gonna do what they want to do. My landlord has done so much to
Mi
me.
landlord me ha hecho tanto a mí.
They tell me I don't have a security deposit.
Yo no tengo un
Oh, but I got a
deposit.
security deposit.
Pero yo lo
I'm going
tengo.
after my security deposit.
yo lo quiero,
My
mi
court
security.
order lasts
Mi
10
orden de la
years.
corte
I
son
got
10 años.
But this happened in 2013. I got 7 more years. Slowly but surely, I work my way to the court, and we're gonna figure this out. I'm gonna change it around, but you're gonna give me my money. They owe me for when we didn't have gas. 6 months no gas. I saved all my receipts. Took them to small claims court. Judge awarded me $1,000, right? Landlord don't want to give. Landlord only wants to take your money. He don't want to give you nothing, or not a brown penny. So they put the case into appeal. So they still don't want to give my $1,000. Guess what? I'm gonna walk over to the to the courthouse, show them my my rent reduction, to let them know this landlord, he's notorious for this. Make him pay me my money, cause I want it, and I'm coming after it, cause he thinks I'm not going to.
All right.
You don't fight, they're gonna run all over you. They're gonna continue to do stuff to you. When you fight, they think about you twice, okay, before they mess with you. Even their lawyers, you know Carabellas? Oh, in my HPD court, I had him, you know lawyers don't do this. I had him sitting before the judge with his hand in his head, shaking his head. You know why? Because when we was in court, while he was steady trying to get over me, I'm going to run your brain through a goddamn wash. My wash. I'm going to fuck with your brain. I'm not going to read you nothing. And you're going to still have to work with me because you got to come to an agreement. Because I had 4 contempt charges, cases coming up on their asses, and they wanted me out of that case. They wanted that case closed. They wanted me to drop all those contempt charges. Because each contempt charge, they have over $1,000 fine for that. They wanted me to drop it. So like I said, you fight, and yes, it takes time, and yes, it gets frustrating, but as long as you fight, that lets them know that you may, this is my motto, you may take me into your park and play with me, okay? But know this, I'm going to bring you to my park, and I'm going to play too, and we're going to play hard, and you're going to get tired of that, because you know why? I'm going to make you spend some fucking money. That's just the way it is. Money and
Básicamente, como se puede
strategies, they do work. They do work.
So can I ask a question?
They do work more with your number, yes.
I have my hand
I wanna-
up. How do you hold the landlords accountable for their
That,
actions?
for that, it's a whole process. It's a whole process of taking into it. We could go into this for hours.
It's step by step.
The point that you can get is that you can hold them
Everything
accountable.
take time.
You can hold them accountable. There's laws in place. We don't live in the wild, wild west.
No, we don't.
Those days are over. Okay? You can hold them accountable. And for you guys here, I'm sure some of you guys have many stories of what constitutes slumlord. But I would like to hear the stories also of you guys, because you guys remember, you guys are. I think when a landlord disrespects a tenant, it's very powerful. Because a lot of people here, you guys go to work, or if you retire, you count your money, you're like, well, I get $1,200 for Social Security. You gotta pay the landlord this amount of money. Whoa, gosh, I only have $300 for the month. Because I don't, my other check. Whatever reason, but you respect them when you pay that rent. The same level of respect needs to be given to you.
Exactly.
But it's not gonna be given. You gotta go and get it.
You gotta work for that stuff.
You gotta go and get it.
But he gets
You have
paid.
to.
He or she gets paid.
But they get paid. But remember, one of the things you guys cannot do is not pay your rent, because now you give them ground and the tools to get you out.
Yeah, exactly.
In my building, we have a rent strike. But you don't do a rent strike, all crazy, like they say, all emotion. No, you can do that. The strategy in place. We have an attorney, we have Palante Harlem, and then for February, the month of love, we're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're not gonna pay now. So we've been on rent strike since February. So now, it's, hey, it's not a lot of money for a landlord that has $1 billion as he claims, but it is some money. And the point here is not the money, it's a statement. You don't come here and mess with us in this building, in these buildings. That's true. Okay? Because if you don't stand your ground, trust me, they're not going to come in here and say, look, Evan, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot about your building for your apartment for the past 30 years. I'm going to make it right. What do I need to fix? No, they're not going to do that. Right now, we still have them have Alma Realty in court, and they still don't do the work that we're supposed to. Because there's a word called recalcitrant.
How you spell that?
So, recalcitrant, I don't know how to spell it. Some of you guys know what it means, some of you guys don't. Recalcitrant is a person who keeps violating the law and don't care about it.
Exactly. And that's
So these landlords, they're like a kid who has a Ferrari, and they're on the highway. On the highway driving at 100 miles per hour, when the trooper stopped him, he said, oh, what are you stopping me for? This is exactly what happened with your landlords. If you don't hold them accountable, and then when you hold them accountable, they're like, oh, I didn't know about that. You're like, seriously? You didn't know about this? Like, I called you like 100 times. To the point that I didn't call you anymore. But if you guys don't go out and get your neighbors, get together. If you don't know how to do it, come to Palante. Come to Palante. You're like, look, I don't know how to do this. I heard this crazy guy talking all this nonsense. How do I get my people together? And David and I will come out. Eddie also will come out. We, in Palante, we run as a family. I don't see my building where I live as a back building. David has a problem, we'll go to David's building. If Eddie has a problem, we'll go to his building. If another building where Miss Perlene was, we went in there. This is not the way it works. We are a community.
And you have to be
And you cannot come with a mentality, I don't care who you are, or they're not going to unite. That's not true.
Even if
That is
people
not true.
don't want to get in it, you have to remember, a small few is enough. And you can't stop fighting, because as long as you stop fighting, they're going to keep pushing. That's it. They're going to keep dogging you.
I'd like to add something about when you said that the different groups and landlords will think that the building will be divided by language and culture. That can work in your favor. In my old building, there were 3 predominant languages. And one, the Armenian community, these neighbors all knew each other. They were a political bloc. So if you spoke to 1 or 2 of them, they would spread the word to the others. And at any meeting, they were all either at the meeting or supporting. So
That's very true.
each group, even if you don't speak the language, if you use those differences to unite everybody.
And guys, this is America. This is New York City. We all come from different backgrounds, different languages, socioeconomic, age, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we all live in the same place. For our elders in my building, I don't have a problem with midlife because I can probably see it. I'm young, I go to my doctor, he makes sure that my prescriptions are up to date, okay? But when I have a 77-year-old, I want her to enjoy her retirement. I don't want her to fall and break her legs. She's not my grandmother. I don't even know her. I just met her in the tennis association. But trust me, I'm going to fight for her as if it was me walking down those steps. And that's what you do when you are all together. Not one person has a problem. We all have a problem.
So, how do you work with a largely transient tenancy? Because in our building, well,
by rooms. You have 5 different rooms. The guys in the apartment didn't know each other. We live in the same apartment, nobody knows each other. We started an association, we started knocking on the doors. They're like, oh, you live it? Oh yeah, I live in the same apartment. You live in the back, oh I see you, oh yeah, I see you sometimes. Now, when we started, for these guys, you know, that's a very nice way for the landlord to increase the rent. Because these guys, they pay $800 per person, 4 or 5 bedroom, and per person. They don't even have a living room.
That's legal.
They don't have a living room.
Is that
So, that is a question that you can bring to the community board, we can bring to the politician, be like, look, is this really legal? To have an apartment where families they live, and have these guys, you know, it's a problem. Well, I cannot go into that because I don't know about that. But about the organization of these guys. When we went in there, we told them, look guys, you guys have a problem. Number one, they gave each one of them a separate lease. I know for a fact in New York City, you don't give them a separate lease. It's 1 lease per apartment. And that's for the landlord to figure out. So when we talked to them, now these guys, they became conscious. They were paying like close to $5,000. Like it was very short of 5,000, like 4,000, very short. Well, the guys, they got united. How do you get them involved? You might be paying too much money for rent. And these apartments, the landlord makes sure that they're spotless. They fix them very nicely because they're making this money for this apartment. These are males.
let me ask you a question. Let me say this. SROs, they're dealing with the city, okay? The city knows about these apartments, and them bringing to each of those persons, they're making 1,000 and more from each of those persons, but the city's paying that bill. The city, they did a contract with the city because the city is trying to find anywhere and everywhere to put people in SROs. These are homeless people, actually.
This, you know, I don't discriminate against anybody who's homeless. You know, it only takes one thing for us. But the issue that she's talking about is people that come in and leave right away. How do you get them? You know, we know there's a guy who's a medical student, the other's a PhD student, the other one's in fashion, the other one is just a tenant, and the other one is a guy who is close to retirement. These 5 guys, they live together. You know, very walks of life. But now they're so united together and active with the tenant association that some of them, they have changed their plan of moving out. And the ones who are moving out, they're making sure that whoever comes in, they all get along together. So for them, it's a very, very, very interesting situation. But they're being exploited just as equal as all the other tenants in there. It's an exploitation. Think about living in an apartment where you don't have a living room. Not because you didn't want to, but because the landlord said, look, Edwin, you're going to live in that room, Dave, you're going to live in that room, you guys don't know each other. And they give you a separate lease. So that is a very nice segue to get them in, to come in. Let's have a conversation.
And the other motivating factor is, you know, especially when it comes to college students, money.
Money, yeah.
You say, listen, you've got an organization, just participate in it, and you can get a building-wide action. Money. Every college student needs more money.
No,
you know?
you said a building-wide action?
Building-wide rent reduction, you know, for building-wide service. United, you can file it, and all you have to do is sign the form. And so you're saying, just by signing this form, you're going to get a rent reduction. They're like, oh, I get money off for rent. That means money. Money is a very big motivating factor.
For some of our tenants in there, some of them they were paying $800 for a room, $750. $750 for a room that you can put your 2 hands like that, and you're touching both walls. Their rent, because they find out the legal rent of the apartment, that room now was paying $300. That kid, every time he see me in the building, he's doing a PhD in biology, he's like, Ellen, thank you so much. Now I'm not even going to move. I remember those days, man. You know? This is reality.
Tag team. All right, I'm going to take over the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes of this session.
So, va a tomar los últimos 20
Topics
minutos.
I want to cover.
cosas que quiero cubrir.
Ultimately, every housing conference, every time we talk to housing,
Cada
it all
conferencia
comes back around and all roads always lead back to housing court.
siempre
Correct?
termina
How many of
en
us
la
have
corte
been
de
to housing
vivienda.
court?
¿Cuántos te han estado en la corte de
How
vivienda?
many of us enjoy going to housing court?
Nobody enjoys it.
I do. I love it.
Ay,
I
a mí
love
me
it.
gusta.
People go, a lot of lawyers, oh my God, I hate this. I don't want
A
to do
mucha
this.
gente
I'm like,
no le gusta.
and they go, why are you smiling? I go, I
Dice, ¿por qué tú
love
te
every
estás
second
riendo?
I'm
Me
here.
gusta cada
Even
segundo
when
que
I'm
estoy
getting
aquí.
my butt kicked,
Hasta
I
cuando me
enjoy
están
it.
ganando
You know
me
what?
gusta.
Anybody remember Godfather Part 2?
¿Quién se acuerda de
You know
la
the
Father 2?
scene, Michael is in Havana, he's with Hyman Roth, they're eating Hyman Roth's birthday cake. You know, and Michael's complaining about something to Hyman Roth, and Hyman Roth goes to Michael, Michael, this is the life we have chosen. It's the life we choose. If you choose it, enjoy it. Now, so let's talk about the group HP action. What is an HP action?
Tiene que
An
gustar.
HP
Una
action
acción HP.
is
Una acción HP es
a type of lawsuit
una demanda
that allows a tenant to
que
start
deja
a
que el
case
tenant
against
empiece
her landlord,
contra su landlord.
to have an inspector come to the
Para que haga un
apartment,
inspector al apartamento.
place violations if there are violations in that
Violaciones si hay
apartment,
alguna.
then come back to court
Y venga a la corte.
and have a judge order
Tenga un juez.
the landlord to correct those violations by a certain date. Under the New York City, and this type of case exists under the New York
Tipo de
City
caso existe
Housing Maintenance Code.
en la ley de
This
vivienda.
section of the Housing Maintenance Code was
En el Código
instituted
de
in
Mantenimiento.
1973.
Que fue de
And the Housing
1973.
Court was originally created
Y la corte fue
only for
creada
these types of
para
cases,
esos tipos de
for
casos.
repair cases only.
De reparación.
The Housing Court was originally created
Originalmente fue
only for
creada
cases
para casos
where tenants were going to sue landlords, or the city was going to sue landlords to fix decrepit buildings.
para
It was only later that somebody said, you know what, while we're at it, let's dump the eviction cases in the housing court. And housing court became a court where people get evicted, as opposed to the court where people get their buildings fixed, which is one of the ironies of history. But there is still a part of the housing court where the HP actions are heard, okay? There is usually one courtroom, it's called a part. In housing court, the parts have letters, A through something, depending on how many. In Manhattan, I think they go Q.
pregunta cuando vamos a la corte.
Is that a good scenario as far as if you are a renter or what have you, and you don't have, say you're in an HDFC building?
Eso mismo si usted tiene un HTPC. Donde el board es el lado. Si yo en un edificio HTPC, usted no puede tomar esa acción. Usted no es un inquilino. Usted es un shareholder. Entonces no puede traer un HP. Usted es un inquilino. Si está rentando tu cuarto,
The statute specifies
el
only
estatus
the tenant
especifica solamente el inquilino puede traer un
shareholder
HP.
cannot bring it. There are other, if you've got a non-responsive board and you're a shareholder, there's another set of remedies you have. That's a different conversation.
Esto está
That
haciendo
we'll
diferencia.
step at the table later.
Guárdala ya,
I
como
can
si la gente le hace notar.
give you some information about that. Now,
Ahora,
somebody, yes, Miss?
alguien,
Is there a list of violations
Yes, there is a list at the,
that you could
if you go to
tú vas a
the online edition of the rules of the city of New York, which
La
is
edición
buried
en línea
somewhere in the New York City
que
website.
está en el website de la ciudad de
There
Nueva York.
is a list of that's a folder, yeah, but that's just to fill out a complaint checklist.
Eso es solamente para
There is an actual list of
hay
the
una
actual
lista de las
violations.
violaciones.
It's hard to find.
Es
Even
difícil
most
de
lawyers don't know this list exists.
Muchos no saben que
Within the rules, if you look under the rules, if you find the rules of City of New York, and get a dig through that website and get what you're really looking for,
tienes que buscar bien en el website.
the city law, the law of the City of New York, breaks down as follows. There's the city charter, which is like the constitution of the City of New York. And then there is the New York City Administrative Code, which are the laws, the statutes of the City of New York. And each each department, go look at New York City Administrative Code online, you'll see that there's a set of laws that govern each department of the city of New York. Those laws have to be passed by the city council on Monday. Then the next step is there are rules. Dig further, you'll find there's something called the rules of the city of New York. The laws allow individual agencies to make rules within the laws more specific. The charter is really general. It just basically says the Department of Buildings has power to regulate buildings. Then the city charter, the administrative code will have the laws. And the laws will say, this is illegal, and that's legal, and this is illegal, and that's legal. And then the department has the power to make rules to enforce this law. So then you get to the rules, and the department promulgates rules, and the department, they make new rules. The rules have to be in compliance with the statute, they have to be published, there has to be a public comment period. And if somebody feels a rule is illegal or unconstitutional within that public comment period, they've got the option to go to court and challenge the rule. But once the rule passes, and the agencies have discretion to make their own rules, a rule is as good as a law. So there's the charter, the administrative code, the rules. Within the rules, and the rules online are divided for each city agency. It's its own set of rules. And then you'll see there are like multiple subsections. And very deep within the rules for HPD is a list of what the actual violations are. If you look at the violation report for the building, you'll always see like HFC code, like there'll be a number. Each violation has a number, like 188, 323. There's an actual rule that's multiple pages long. It says violation number 1 is rats. Violation number 2 is a roof leak. That's what that means. And within those rules, there are certain subcategories. Some violations are classified as immediately hazardous, which are called Class C violations. There are the second category, and they have to be corrected within 72 hours. The second category of violation is called hazardous violation. Those are known as Class B violations. They have to be corrected within 30 days. And the third category of violation is called a non-hazardous violation. And that's the Class C violation. That has to be corrected within 90 days. Any questions? That's an A violation. Incomplete. Or not within any other category. Depends on the inspector. Discretion. Depending on the game. It's not within one of the categories that can give it an I. If the inspector thinks it's immediately hazardous, that inspector will write it as a C. If they think it's just hazardous, they'll write it as a B. So sometimes you'll see a little bit of a variation. There's also some discretion with the other violations of the inspectors. A roof leak can be hazardous or can be depending on whether it's a drip or there's water gushing. Depending, it might be B, it might be written. Then they're all, I won't go, that gets way.
You mentioned earlier about who appoints the judge.
Now, that's my next topic. Housing court. Housing court judges. Many of us have been to housing court. We appear before these people. Who are these people? People are Bruno's friends. Former college. No, I have many friends who have become housing court judges. How does one become a housing court judge? A housing court judge is appointed by the chief administrative judge for the city of New York. A housing court judge is not really a judge under the New York State Constitution. A housing court judge is called a judge, but is really technically a hearing officer under the New York State Constitution. The way one becomes a housing court judge is one must have practiced law for 5 years and have a knowledge of housing law. Those are the only Those are the only
son
two
los únicos
requirements
dos requerimientos
to be appointed housing court
para
judge.
ser nombrado juez de
Then
requerimiento.
there is something called the Housing Court Advisory Committee
El comité
that is
de
supposed
aviso
to
de la corte que al contrario a
advise the chief administrative judge as to who they should appoint.
que dan recomendaciones a quién ellos pueden
So
nombrar
there
para
are
esa posición.
52
Hay
positions
52
for housing court judge in the city of
posiciones
New York. There are
en la
52
ciudad de
housing
Nueva
court
York.
judges. Five. 52 judges,
52 jueces
5-year terms, and they stagger about 10 each year. Get them. And it depends on who quits, if there's a
depende de
vacancy
quién
comes
se
up.
sale,
Like
si
if
hay una
somebody who's in for
vacancia,
a 5-year term, and then they
alguien de
quit,
5
or they
años
got
puede
elected
irse
a real judge somewhere, then they've got a vacancy,
lo
so
nombra
somebody
el
else
juez
gets
en otra
appointed,
parte, se ponen a otra
that
persona
5 years. So
y duran 5 años,
the
es
amount
un
of
término.
vacancies each year varies depending on who
Y
retires,
eso varía
another
de quién se
job,
retira, quién tiene otro trabajo.
point, which is where that. So
Pero
to become a housing court
para
judge,
ser un
one has
juez
to have those qualifications.
tiene que
Lawyer
tener
for
esa
5
calificación,
years,
5 años
alleged knowledge of housing court law.
de conocimiento de la
So you have to apply.
hay que aplicar
You have to be approved by the Housing Court Advisory Committee.
por el
The
comité.
Housing Court Advisory Committee breaks itself down into
Se
subcommittees
nombran
and
subcomités
then the full advisory committee.
y el comité.
Then there is the New York City Bar Association
La asociación
has a judiciary committee which passes on the qualifications of anybody who wants to be any kind of judge in New York City. That's not in the statute, but basically you've got to pass that committee
tiene que pasar
to
ese
get
comité
to the stage where you're considered for appointment.
para ser
So the way it
considerado
usually works is
nombrado.
they put an ad every year. Every year they put an ad in this newspaper called the New York Law Journal that lawyers buy because it has court cases published in it, court calendars, all of which information is online, so there's really no reason to pay for $400 a year law journals. But people still get it because it looks good if you buy. You know, you walk into your lawyer's office, there's a law journal there. I put that in the fair or whatever else. So you apply.
So, uno aplica
The application
la aplicación
for housing court judge
para un juez
is
de
about 30 pages, and they want to know everything
una
about
página
you,
dice todo el
what you've
servicio
ever done in your life, that you've done. You
vida.
have to give them ADA authorizations for them to investigate you. You've got to disclose like 5 years worth of tax return.
So le pide mucho
Not because there's
y ha
been a lot of money,
recibido no
not because of anything in particular, but because there's been people power, it's real grassroots.
el
It's
poder de la
really
gente
a
del
grassroots
mismo
movement,
claro,
I'll call it a movement,
movimiento
because it's a tenant advocacy group. Are you able to?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
yes,
translated to
yes,
Spanish.
yes.
Okay, good.
Translated.
Okay, good. And it's a tenant advocacy group, which is really what we need. Listen, I've been chair of the Housing Committee in the New York State Assembly, and as you know, we've had some struggles. But we have been able to play some good defense in these last couple of years. This last legislative session, we did not do a housing budget because the New York State Senate wanted something called 421A. 421A basically is a tax break given to developers. You may have heard about it because there are a lot of commercials on TV, not too long ago. But 421A was not the right way to go. So, but if we were going to do 421A, we wanted to make sure that we got at least $500 million for New York City public housing. We wanted to make sure that we were able to build some more low-income and moderate-income housing here in New York City. And we wanted to make sure that a lot of tenant harassment of landlords would stop. So we've been able to, by way of the tenant protection unit, we've been able to play some defense again on landlord harassment. So, but I have had the opportunity to actually put a landlord in jail.
Hey.
Buildings up on 8th Avenue.
Excuse me, I have epilepsy, please. The
Ma'am, I'm
flashes.
sorry, I'm trying to
Okay,
take, I'm
I'm
trying to
right?
I'm trying to document this event for the
Okay, but not in
organization,
front of
so,
me,
okay.
you're standing
let's
right in front
continue.
of me, please.
I have actually had the opportunity to put a landlord in jail, and he just had a horrible building up on 8th Avenue, I think it was 142nd. And we were going back and forth, so then I took him to court, and lo and behold, and he used to drive up to his property in his Maserati. Never forget, I'll never forget. He used to drive up to his building in a Maserati. And his buildings were so bad, and he would not make the necessary repair. He would not cure the violations. The judge actually put this landlord in jail for 10 days. Golia is his name, Golia, anyway. Golia. And so he was in jail for about 10 days. So that's my experience with a bad landlord and putting him in jail. Now, of course, landlords have gotten a little bit more sophisticated as time has gone on, because I've actually never heard a landlord say, "You're paying me too much money." I've never heard that. I've never heard that. You're paying me too much money. So I'm glad you're having that session. Number two, housing court judges, you said? Housing court, okay. As the New York County Democratic leader, and that's one of the jobs that I have, it's my job to make sure that we appoint civil and Supreme Court judges. But if anybody sometimes would ever look at what's going on in housing court, and it's the mayor of the city of New York that decides who the housing court judges are. It's the mayor of the city of New York. So, you gotta remember, we've had about 20 years of Republican mayors here in the city of New York, so they have actually appointed however many housing court judges that are ruling on all of our cases. I can't tell you the horror stories I hear in my office each and every day about how tenants go into housing court and the judges either have no judicial temperament whatsoever, or they're not sympathetic, or they're not even hearing folks in housing court regarding the harassment that they're going through, especially our tenants. Occasionally, we'll get and then I've actually been chastised and admonished by some other judges because of my advocacy for tenants to the housing court. You know, and I haven't stopped because they're telling me I shouldn't write a letter. That's my job. My job is to advocate on behalf of my constituents. And if they go into housing, there's no problem. And if they don't have counsel, I don't see any problem whatsoever in asking a judge for more time. I'm not asking a judge to decide a certain way. I'm not doing that. But it would be political and governmental malpractice on my part if I were not to advocate on behalf of each and every tenant that comes through the door of my office. They don't even have to live in the district. I don't care about that. But we have to make sure we have to fight block by block, building by building, apartment by apartment, because, you know, these folks want these apartments. They want them all. They want them all. So I actually live in the same rent stabilized apartment I grew up in. I don't think anybody else can say that. I live in the same rent stabilized apartment that I grew up in on 135th Street. And because I know that I take this stuff very personally. I take it very personally. I know how the rents have gone up and salaries have stayed flat. I know how the rents have gone up and salaries have gone down. I know how the rents have gone up, and I know that people ain't got a job. I've been there before. The whole reason I got into politics is when I got my last unemployment check. Hired me. 1985. Believe me, I know, been there. And so that's real. So we have to fight for each and every apartment. All right, and that's what Palante does. Palante, you know, is our guardian angel in so many ways. So I'm so glad to see all of you out here on a Saturday. With me here today is Jeff Eaton, who's the chief of staff to our Congressman Charles B. Rangle. Charlie Rangle passed the low-income tax credit bill, which has helped an extraordinary amount of people throughout the state. Now, and the reason I'm talking, thank you for letting me interrupt, because
porque
we got 10 days to go before an election.
una elección.
Is everybody aware of that?
Yes.
I heard about that.
I can't hear what you said.
I heard about that.
You heard about that?
Yeah,
There's
primary
an
election.
election. There's an election, probably the most important election of our time up here
Más
in
importante
northern
de todo
Manhattan.
aquí en
We've
Northern
had
Manhattan.
2 congresspeople in the history of this. I usually do. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos.
All right, so we're
So,
over time and there are other
estamos
sections. I'm just gonna,
pasado de
I'm
tiempo,
gonna skip the procedural part.
so voy a
Come talk to me over
brincar
here
la parte de
later.
procedimiento. So,
Guys,
Go on it later.
before you leave,
los que
please
quieran hablar
fill out
conmigo va a estar aquí en el lado.
so we can know.
So, antes de irse tenemos
Yeah.
estos papeles que nos dan una codificación correcta. Eso me ayuda mucho.
I just want to make one point for thought. Here in New York City, the housing court judges
¿Dónde está?
appointed by this ridiculous
Se pregunta si me
process
ven.
and ultimately appointed by another judge. Every other county
No se preocupe,
Yo tengo que preocuparme porque
Yo
ellos
sé.
harass me.
Eso es harassment, pero...
Porque fui yo que lo llamé para el apartamento para que me arreglaran.
Ujú.
Y
Only in the 5 boroughs of New York City